Millionaire CEO heard his maid's daughter crying over a broken toy. His action shocked the household. The sound cut through the mansion like a crack in glass, thin and fragile yet impossible to ignore. It was the sound of a child crying, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the quiet exhaustion of someone who had already learned that the world does not always listen. In a house where marble floors reflected chandeliers and silence was considered a luxury, that soft crying felt like an accusation. It reached the study where the millionaire CEO sat alone, surrounded by numbers that ruled empires, contracts that moved markets, and decisions that could change thousands of lives. For the first time in years, he froze, not because of a financial risk or corporate scandal, but because something unseen had shaken him in a place money had never touched. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that even the smallest moments can change a life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. The CEO had built his life on control. Every minute of his day was scheduled, every emotion carefully managed, every weakness buried beneath tailored suits and polished speeches. His mansion was not a home so much as a fortress, designed to keep unpredictability out. The staff moved quietly, efficiently, almost invisibly, trained to leave no trace of their presence. Among them was a woman named Rosa, the maid who had worked there for nearly a decade. She cleaned the rooms no one else noticed, wiped fingerprints off surfaces that would never gather dust, and carried her worries silently, as if they were part of the uniform. Her daughter, Sophia, sometimes waited for her after school in a small storage room near the back of the house, a place filled with old boxes and forgotten furniture. It was not allowed, officially, but necessity often bends rules that power never sees. That afternoon, Sophia's world had cracked over something small and ordinary. A toy, old and worn, the kind that had been loved too hard for too long, had finally broken. It was not expensive. It was not rare. But it was the one thing that belonged only to her, the one object that made her feel seen in a life shaped by hand-me-downs and quiet sacrifices. When it broke, it felt as though something inside her did too. She cried silently at first, pressing the toy to her chest, hoping it might somehow fix itself if she wished hard enough. But wishes do not repair plastic or heal the sharp ache of knowing there will be no replacement. The CEO heard that crying because he had stayed late, long after the staff believed the house would be empty. A failed deal had left him restless, pacing instead of driving home to another empty night. The sound stopped him mid-step, unfamiliar and unsettling. He followed it down a corridor he rarely used, toward the parts of the house that existed only to support his life, not to be part of it. When he saw the child crouched among boxes, shoulders shaking, something unexpected stirred inside him. It was not pity. It was recognition, sharp and uncomfortable, like remembering a dream you had tried to forget. He remembered being a boy once, long before the suits and boardrooms, when his own world had felt just as fragile. His father had worked endless hours, his mother had worried endlessly, and toys were not guaranteed. He remembered how small disappointments had felt enormous then, how a broken object could feel like proof that life was unfair and unforgiving. That memory had been buried under years of ambition, but in that moment, it surfaced with surprising force. The CEO did not speak. He did not announce his presence or demand explanations. He simply watched, realizing how little he knew about the lives unfolding quietly within his walls. The mansion suddenly felt different to him, less like a symbol of success and more like a stage where invisible struggles played out every day. He learned in that silence that wealth can insulate you from noise but not from truth. Rosa found him there moments later, panic flashing across her face as she realized her daughter had been seen. Fear rushed through her, the kind that comes from knowing how easily livelihoods can vanish. She had always been careful, always grateful, always invisible. Her daughter's tears felt like a failure she could not afford. But the CEO did not respond with anger or authority. Instead, he surprised even himself by kneeling slightly, lowering his towering presence, trying to understand rather than control. He learned about the toy, about how long Sophia had kept it, about how it had survived moves, hardships, and nights when her mother cried quietly, thinking her child slept. The broken toy became a symbol of so much more than itself. It represented a childhood balanced on the edge of resilience, a life learning to adapt without complaint. The CEO felt something shift, not dramatically, but deeply, like a fault line finally moving. What he did next shocked the household, not because it was grand, but because it was personal. He did not simply replace the toy or offer money. He ordered the staff to pause their work. Meetings were cancelled. Schedules rewritten. He spent the afternoon doing something he had not done in years, paying attention. He had the toy repaired carefully, not replaced, honoring the history embedded in its worn edges. He arranged for Sophia to have a space where she could wait comfortably, with books, art supplies, and light. And then he did something no one expected. He listened to Rosa. Listening became the most radical act of all. He learned about her life, her fears, her hopes for her daughter. He learned how often people like her were grateful for crumbs while standing inside palaces. The mansion changed that day, not in structure but in spirit. Policies were reviewed. Wages adjusted. Education support quietly introduced. The staff noticed first, unsure at first whether this was temporary or real. But as weeks passed, it became clear that something fundamental had shifted. The CEO himself changed in ways he did not anticipate. The relentless drive that once defined him softened, making room for reflection. He began to see his success not just as personal triumph but as responsibility. The crying child had done what no boardroom crisis ever had. She had reminded him of his humanity. His work took on new meaning. Decisions were no longer abstract numbers but potential futures. Sophia's presence became a quiet light in the house. Her laughter replaced the earlier silence, her resilience inspiring those who had forgotten what hope looked like. Rosa walked taller, no longer just surviving but believing, cautiously, that the world could be kinder. The household, once ruled by fear of mistakes, slowly transformed into a place where dignity mattered. Years later, when people spoke of the CEO's legacy, they talked about more than profits and growth. They spoke about how he changed a culture, how he proved that leadership rooted in empathy could be just as powerful as ambition. And it all traced back to one small moment, one broken toy, one child's tears that refused to be ignored. As this story begins to close, if it touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can begin anywhere and change everything, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that matter. Special request, before the ending, comment below and tell us what moment in this story moved you the most, or share a time when a small act of kindness changed your life. The CEO never claimed to be a hero. He knew better than anyone how long he had ignored what mattered. But he learned that redemption does not require perfection, only attention. The mansion still stood tall, still gleamed with wealth, but it no longer felt hollow. Somewhere within its walls, a repaired toy rested in a child's hands, carrying the quiet truth that sometimes the smallest breaks are what finally let the light in.